I had a lot of doubts because of how much, he even told her, oh my gosh, you're dead. I mean,
Before the white jumpsuits, before the screaming crowds, before the title King of Rock and Roll, there was just a boy from Tupelo. Elvis Presley was born on January 8, 1935 in Mississippi, a surviving twin. His brother, Jesse Guerin, was stillborn. That silent absence lingered in the Presley home like a ghost no one spoke about, but everyone felt. From the very beginning, Elvis carried the weight of being the one who lived. He grew up in a small shotgun house, raised in poverty but wrapped in fierce maternal love. His bond with his mother, Gladys, was more than affectionate, it was consuming. She called him her miracle baby. He called her the center of his world. Some biographers believe that intensity shaped the way Elvis would love for the rest of his life, passionately, protectively, and sometimes fearfully. Money was always tight. His father, Vernon, struggled to maintain steady work. At one point, the family even lost their home. Stability was fragile, but imagination wasn't. Music became his sanctuary. Gospel hymns from church, blues echoing through Memphis streets, country radio drifting through late-night air. When the family moved to Memphis, everything changed. Beale Street exposed him to raw sound and soul. Black gospel blended with country sorrow and rhythm and blues rebellion. He didn't just want to perform, he wanted to move people. And when he walked into Sun Records in 1954, he wasn't refined, he was hungry. That hunger would crown him king. But no crown protects the heart, and that unprotected heart would one day meet a girl named Priscilla. What kind of connection forms between a global icon and a girl still in braids and school books? In 1959, while stationed in Germany during his military service, Elvis Presley met 14-year-old Priscilla Presley at a small gathering in his rented home. He was 24. She was quiet, observant, composed beyond her years. She didn't scream, she didn't flirt, she listened. And that's what disarmed him. Elvis was grieving the devastating loss of his mother. The army had stripped him of the stage lights and adoration he thrived on. For the first time in years, he felt ordinary, exposed, uncertain. With Priscilla, he didn't have to be the king. He could talk about fear, about loneliness, about the pressure of expectations waiting for him back in America. Late nights turned into long conversations. He would sit at the piano and sing softly, not to impress, but to express. Priscilla later revealed something that surprised many critics. Their early bond wasn't built on physical passion, it was emotional dependency. But the age difference raised concerns even then. Her parents were cautious. The relationship remained private, carefully managed. Elvis promised protection, promised patience, promised it was serious. And to a teenage girl far from home, it felt like destiny unfolding. But destiny can blur into devotion, and devotion, when tied to fame, can slowly become surrender. Because loving Elvis Presley meant stepping into his world, and once inside that world, nothing remained simple. When Priscilla finally moved to Memphis, she imagined romance. Instead, she entered a kingdom. Graceland wasn't just a mansion, it was a universe built around one man's rhythm, habits, and needs. Life there didn't follow a normal schedule. Elvis slept during the day. The house came alive at night. Friends, musicians, and bodyguards filled every corner. Priscilla adjusted quickly. She darkened her hair to match his preference, applied heavy eyeliner because he liked dramatic eyes. She chose outfits that reflected his ideal vision of femininity. She later admitted she wasn't just adapting, she was transforming. Because loving a superstar often means becoming part of his fantasy. But fantasy has conditions. Elvis adored youth and innocence. He cherished admiration. Yet when admiration evolved into independence, he became uneasy. Graceland sparkled with chandeliers, velvet furniture, and walls lined with gold records. But behind the glamour, isolation crept in quietly. Priscilla was young. She had left friends, school, and a normal adolescence behind. She was surrounded by people, yet often alone. Slowly, she realized something painful. She was adored, but controlled, protected, but shaped by his image. The palace shimmered in photographs, but inside, invisible walls were forming, and those walls would tighten even further once marriage turned illusion into obligation. By 1967, the world seemed to demand everything from Elvis Presley: commitment, consistency, proof that the king could be normal. Fans watched every move. The press dissected every detail. His manager pressed for stability, a routine, a marriage that would anchor his public image. Elvis had proposed with a 3.5-carat diamond ring, spectacular, romantic, undeniably public. Headlines glorified the engagement, yet behind the glimmer of jewelry and velvet boxes, doubt gnawed at him. Priscilla later revealed that days before the wedding, Elvis seriously considered canceling. It wasn't that he didn't love her. The love was fierce, protective, almost uncontainable. But marriage carried a weight he had never shouldered before: permanence, responsibility, a life bound by obligations. Freedom, the very essence of his magnetism, felt threatened. On May 1st, 1967, they married in Las Vegas. 8 minutes, quick, efficient. Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled, headlines erupted. The world cheered a new chapter in the king's story. Yet beneath the carefully choreographed perfection, anxiety simmered. Elvis had always built his persona on fantasy, on escapism. Marriage was reality, accountability. The questions were unspoken but relentless. Would fans still worship him? Would love, domesticity, and routine dull the thrill of his mythic image? His honeymoon in Palm Springs was a brief illusion of serenity: laughter, sun-drenched walks, stolen kisses. But for Elvis, even bliss was haunted by doubt. He could electrify stadiums, make hearts race, and command attention with a flick of his hips. But settling down, that was a performance that frightened him more than any stage. In the palace of adoration he had built, the smallest cracks, permanence, intimacy, fatherhood, could feel like collapse. And in that fragile space, both he and Priscilla would soon face a new reality that neither could control. When Priscilla discovered she was pregnant, the world should have shifted to joy. For most, parenthood signals completion, hope, and new beginnings. For Elvis, it unleashed fear. Fatherhood meant transformation, a role that could no longer be masked by charm or stage presence. Suddenly, the king was vulnerable. Reports suggest Elvis obsessed over perception. What would the public think? The man who had danced into hearts with swagger and mystery, now changing diapers? Losing his sex appeal in the eyes of millions? He worried, he doubted, and he retreated. When Lisa Marie Presley was born in February 1968, the facade cracked. Elvis held his daughter in trembling hands, tears streaking his face, overwhelmed with emotion he rarely displayed in public. In that intimate moment, the enormity of love and fear collided. He was captivated by her innocence, spellbound by the life he had created. Yet the closeness he once had with Priscilla subtly shifted. Intimacy between husband and wife grew complicated. Emotional distance crept in, almost unnoticed at first. Priscilla was no longer just the companion who understood his fears. She was now a mother. And in Elvis's mind, the line between love, desire, and family blurred uneasily. He loved deeply, yet compartmentalized affection, often burying one layer under another. Priscilla sensed the change. The laughter shared during late-night whispers gave way to a quiet tension. Cracks began forming in the architecture of their relationship, small but persistent, foreshadowing the silent separation that would later define their story. Fame is seductive, and in Elvis's orbit, temptation was constant. Touring created distance, Hollywood parties created opportunities, fans created an unrelenting gaze. Infidelity no longer secret, it became an expected backdrop to his life. Priscilla endured. For years she clung to hope, hoping fatherhood, love, and loyalty might anger him. She tolerated, she forgave,
She watched, but time changed her. Isolation gave way to empowerment. She found karate, a discipline that sharpened mind and body, and with it a newfound confidence. Independence blossomed silently but resolutely beyond Graceland's gilded walls. Eventually, emotional refuge grew elsewhere. Not revenge, not malice, but connection. And by 1972, her decision stunned the public. She left. Her words were simple, devastating in their clarity. I didn't want to share him. The divorce wasn't theatrical. Cameras captured polite smiles, composure maintained. But behind the optics, the king shattered. For the first time, he wasn't the one choosing distance. He was being left. His ego bruised, his identity as omnipotent, invincible, and adored fractured. And underneath that pride, a deeper wound opened, a raw awareness that
Accelerated. Addiction wasn't a secret, it was his shadow. Through it all, Priscilla remained a distant emotional anchor via their daughter, Lisa Marie. She witnessed the decline, the frantic dependency, the internal conflict that fame had magnified. She saw the man who had once been vulnerable in Germany now being consumed by forces he couldn't control. And yet, the king performed, because that was his essence. Even when chaos devoured him, Elvis Presley could still command attention. But behind every bow, every high note, every dazzling smile, the truth was undeniable. The man who had electrified stadiums was losing control over the life he had built, and the story of his decline was as mesmerizing and as heartbreaking as any performance he ever gave. August 16, 1977. Graceland was unusually quiet that morning, the kind of silence that seemed to stretch through every room, unbroken and foreboding. Inside, something irreversible had occurred. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, the man whose voice had ignited the hearts of millions, was found unresponsive in his bathroom. He was only 42 years old. The official cause would later be ruled as cardiac arrhythmia, a heart condition exacerbated by years of prescription drug use. News traveled fast. The world froze. Fans gathered outside Graceland's gates, holding flowers, candles, and memories, struggling to reconcile the icon they adored with the fragile man who had been quietly battling inner demons. The press dissected the event in every detail, broadcasting grief and speculation across continents. But beneath the headlines was a far more complex, heartbreaking truth. Elvis had lived under constant pressure from fame, touring schedules, financial demands, and the expectations of a public who never wanted him to falter. Addiction had crept in like a silent predator, hiding behind charm and stage energy, slowly eroding control over his body and mind. For Priscilla, the morning brought an entirely new role. She became protector of a legacy, guardian of Graceland, and mother to a daughter now left without her father. Lisa Marie was only 9, but her grief was raw and immediate. For Priscilla, the story wasn't only about loss, it was about responsibility, about honoring the memory of a man whose life had been so much larger than himself. Their love had ended long ago, but the bond they shared, built through shared experiences, trust, and years of deep emotional connection, had never truly faded. And grief has a way of resurfacing unfinished feelings, reminding those left behind that even icons are human. Years after the world mourned, Priscilla Presley began to break her silence. She didn't seek scandal, she didn't aim for sensationalism, she sought clarity. Misconceptions about their relationship had persisted for decades, fueled by tabloids, rumors, and the public's fascination with the king's private life. Priscilla emphasized something critical. Their bond was rooted in emotional intimacy, not manipulation. From the first moment she met him, she described Elvis as kind, gentle, and deeply vulnerable, a man who confided his fears, insecurities, and grief with her in ways he had never shown anyone else. She painted a picture of a love built on trust, even amid turbulence. Elvis's struggles were often misunderstood as cruelty or ego-driven detachment, but Priscilla's revelations humanized him. He was not fearless nor invincible. Beneath the crown of stardom was a man wrestling with immaturity, pressure, and an inability to reconcile his desires with the expectations of fame. She described moments of tenderness, quiet conversations, and the profound influence their emotional connection had on shaping both of their lives. By sharing her perspective, she reframed their story. The king of rock and roll, whose legend was built on power and charisma, was revealed to be fragile, yearning for understanding and acceptance. She allowed the world to see what fans had never truly witnessed: vulnerability under the spotlight, tenderness behind the music, and a deep human love that survived fame, mistakes, and heartbreak. Today, Elvis Presley remains immortalized in the pantheon of music history. His voice, style, and influence continue to captivate new generations. But alongside the legend is a love story equally compelling, that of Elvis and Priscilla Presley. It was not perfect, it was not simple. It was messy, emotional, flawed, and profoundly human. They married young, fell in love intensely, and endured betrayal, distance, and public scrutiny. They hurt each other, yet mutual respect remained a constant thread. Some love stories aren't measured by longevity. They are measured by the impact they leave on the people involved, by how they shape hearts, decisions, and legacies. Elvis shaped Priscilla. He introduced her to the whirlwind world of fame, the vulnerabilities of devotion, and the weight of emotional intensity. In turn, Priscilla preserved Elvis, his dignity, his memory, and the legacy of his family and daughter, Lisa Marie. Their connection transcended scandal or rumor. It was rooted in shared humanity, understanding, and enduring emotional bonds. The story's resonance lies not in shocking details, but in its revelation of vulnerability. Elvis Presley, the king who could command millions with a note or a movement, struggled with love, intimacy, and impermanence just like any human being. And Priscilla, who navigated the world beside him, illuminated the man behind the myth.